Good morning, everyone. We had a small problem with the mic there, but I think we are good to go. So, welcome back to part two. I thought I'd start off today with a brief recap of what we covered in part one and cover some stuff that I think I did not give enough time to on day one. So, and then also a couple of questions came up after the stream yesterday, so I thought I'd start off with a little trying to answer those questions first. So first and foremost, Luke had pointed out that hey Skelly, that the item that we made, the caster's guide to self defense, was casting spells because it's casting spells the way that scrolls cast spells, that it would be flagged by the Cald Wizards. And I wanted to bring this up because this is one of those interesting trade-offs where we have to discuss, whether it's beneficial to change something and kind of what our options are. So I'm going to bring up the item really quick. This is still installed. Yeah, it is. Okay. So this item can cast haste or mirror image. And because it casts it, it's basically casting the arcane spell underneath, like directly. It's casting the arcane version of haste directly. If you use this like in Athkatla, the Cald Wizards will show up and basically bitch at you for using spells, which is suboptimal because this is not a mage-only item. So you could be, your barbarian could be using this, and the Cald Wizards show up and say stop using magic, which is silly. But this is a good discussion to have of trade-offs, because your solution to fixing that is, rather than us having it cast the spell directly, is we can either copy haste into like a non-arcane version and have it cast that instead, or we could just copy the effects from haste directly into the item and have it just execute those. Both of those would bypass the Cald Wizards. The problem with both of those is that haste is referenced in so many places. I'm talking about the spell directly. For example, anything that provides any item or spell that provides free action blocks the haste spell explicitly. So everything that has haste needs to also account for like this other way that now either if we clone the spell or if we make the effects go in directly, we now have to update every free action item in the game, which isn't difficult, but the problem comes down the line if there's another mod that wants to change how haste works, right? So if somebody has a tweak mod that says, I don't want haste to have fatigue anymore, they don't know about this item or about the clone spell. And so me as a modder, I have to reach out to everybody who modifies haste in some way and say like, hey, you also need to change, you also need to make sure you account for this extra spell or item that we've done this to. So, and that's a little difficult, especially because the modding scene as it is now, there are so many people who are not active. And also, because it's so, like, modding has kind of exploded in the last 5 years. It's no longer like, in the olden days, you could check like 3 sites and you could learn about like 98% of the mods. And that's no longer the case because a lot of people publish directly to GitHub, or, they have like a buried thread on the CamDawg forums about their mod or whatever. So, it's a trade-off. It's like, do we leave this as kind of suboptimal, where this item that really shouldn't be summoning Cald Wizards summons them anyway? Or do we have a situation where is more than likely going to be out of sync with any mods that come in later and change the behavior of haste and mirror image? So this is one of those trade-offs. And the thing is, there's no good answer, right? This is just one of those things that you just kind of have to get a feel for about, which is the least wrong answer. And for a lot of times there's not, a very clear, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do, because both, either way you're trading off something, right? Either Cald Wizards get summoned, which isn't good, or its compatibility problems down the line. Because keep in mind, this is an item mod, so this is going to be something that goes in early in the install process, and then trust like tweaks and rule changes and other stuff to behave correctly with it. And we can't account for all of those. So Luke had brought this up in the recap thread, and it's a completely valid point, but it's also there's no good answer. So for simplicity, we're going to leave it as it is, but just know that is a concern. The other item that we did that summoned the Blade Barrier, that's a divine spell, so it doesn't matter if the Cald Wizards don't respond to those, so it doesn't matter. But for this item specifically, it will trip the Callies. But given the alternatives, we're going to leave it as it is. And this is just one of those things that you kind of note in the readme that, hey, this could happen. We know about it. It's not going to change, right? This is like a known issue. So that was the first bit of feedback. The other one was from Skelly. And he pointed out, when I was talking about prefixes, I mentioned that I have two. I have a CD and I have a C exclamation point. And I don't use a C exclamation point much anymore because it's just an extra pain in Waidu. So I thought I'd just give a quick demonstration of that. So we can, let me pull up an item here really quick. So when we get around to updating the artwork, it's going to be these icon fields, not the ground icon, because that's the small little icon that appears when you drop something. And generally there's only like 10 of those, but you do generally use custom art for what appears in the inventory, and then also when you pull up the description. So, and you notice that these fields are text. So you use a slightly different command. Hold on, let me go back really quick. So the icon is at offset 3A. So we would use something, a new command called write ASCII, and we're going to do it at offset 3A. And it's just like the say command. You say, all right, we're going to write ASCII. I want it to do it here. And actually, hold on, we're going to do write ASCII evaluated. And I want the new icon to be, CD icon, right? So I can go to, let me bring the window over to here. So now I can run this. Just thinking about it. And Waidu says, hey, no problem. I got it. I've updated your item. And if we click off really quick and come back, you'll notice a now CD icon. Now, using my old original prefix of C exclamation point, now we try it. And Waidu throws an error. And the reason why is because an exclamation point is a special character in coding. It basically means like not. So you basically have to add an extra level of wrapping this to explicitly tell Waidu that this is a string and to treat it as such. And it becomes a pain in the butt to do this all the time. So there's a handful of characters, exclamation points, ats, and a few others that if you use as your prefix, it gives you this extra level of obnoxiousness that you need to worry about. So that's why I use CD. That's why if you're picking your own prefix, try to stick with letters. Like symbols are nice, like underscores are safe. I think pound signs are fine, but like ats, exclamation points, stars, and carets, and percentage signs, those are all going to be, you're going to have to do a lot of this where you're doing extra delineators to explicitly tell Waidu to just treat it as straight up text and not as a special symbol. So that's why Skelly had mentioned that post stream, and so I thought I'd go into that a little bit more in that. So and then so those are kind of the questions I had afterwards. Just by habit, usually I wrap stuff anyways, but it's just one of the things to be aware of why why you may want to avoid certain characters when you choose your modding prefix. And Skelly had mentioned that post stream, and so I wanted to start off, with a little Q&A from stuff that came up after the stream yesterday. The other thing we didn't do at the end of the stream yesterday that I said I was going to do and we didn't was we did not do our final commit of the work we had done yesterday. So you can see now, we've got 2 items we need to add. I'll add those. And then you'll notice we've got red exclamation points. Those means that there are changed files. Like we updated game with this new text. So it's got a red exclamation point to indicate that it's changed. So we've made all those changes. So now we're just going to, like I said, we should have done this at the end of yesterday. We're going to say day 1 items complete. And then you'll notice we've got these 2, we've added 2 items. The TP2 and the game tray have changed. These 2, the non-version files, that basically means I've got stuff in the repo that I've not officially added. And these are the 2 readmes that I've not bothered to write text for. So that's why these are here and they're in version, and that's fine. So we're going to commit and push. Boom, boom, boom. We're done. We can come over to the repo. And you know if we've got a new commit. So like I said, I was supposed to do this at the end of yesterday's stream. I forgot. So it indicates that we've added 2 items and we've and oh wait, did it just do the items? Huh, okay. I may not have. Why did it not? Oh, did I just click on item and do that? Oh, because these weren't checked. Well, that's dumb. All right, that was silly of me. All right, so for real this time. So that should have been 1 commit. Did it then 2. Oh, well. So, and because we're going to be working today, normally I also would have done a nightly package yesterday using this script. Since I didn't, we're just going to do it at the end of today. So, so that was catching up on questions that came up since then. So Zen Black asks, since BAMs are not in text, can you just replace it in near infinity with no bad effects? Yes. If it's an existing BAM, you can just overwrite the old one with a new one. And then pretty much everything that refers to the old one will just now refer to the new one. And that's nice because that actually dovetails into one of the things I wanted to do yesterday, and I kind of forgot. We just kind of went straight into making items, was just kind of an overview in general of how modding works. So if we go to, actually, let me go to my fixpack folder because it's a cleaner install. So if you go to your game folder and look at it, pretty much all the stuff that the game needs are in these files called BIFs. These are just basically compressed files that contain, area, artwork, dialogues, sound files, whatever, for the entire game. And then there's also an override folder. And so the override folders, basically you can say like, I know there's a spell in the BIF, but it's been updated. Use this one instead. So whenever you see us adding or changing existing content, you'll notice we're always dumping it into the override folder. So that's how mods work. Basically, you're saying use this updated or new resource that's not in the game files and use this version instead. So, when we were, you noticed yesterday when we were copying over the items, right? We drop it into the override folder. And that's why, and stuff like when we change this, you notice there's not a destination, but that's because append dumps an updated tooltip into override automatically for you. But for stuff where you have to specify a destination, it's always going to be the override folder, and that's why. So, so there's that. The other thing is, I also want to do just kind of a brief overview of the game files themselves, because we just kind of got into this. So let me refresh this tree really quick. So if you look in near infinity, to set it up, you basically point it to your chitin.key, which is in your game folder. Chitin.key just basically says what files are in what BIFs. You don't need to worry about that near infinity. We'll figure all that out for yourself. But once it's loaded, every game file is available to you. Now, most of these you're never going to mess with, right? The odds that you ever need to mess with a biography file are 0. right? Or unless you're doing hardcore GUI editing like chews and moss and other stuff, or shaders. So most of the stuff that's on the tree is not stuff you worry about, but I did want to highlight at least a couple different types of files. 2DA files tend to be like lookup tables, usually with stuff like rule sets. So like, for example, this is where it determines a character's base to hit based on their class, right? It's also where you get hit points, right? This is the barbarian table for hit points, right? You roll a d12 up through level 9, and then after that you get a fixed 3 hit points per level plus constitution bonus, right? So 2DAs they're just text files. They tend to be rule stuff. Area files are for areas. We'll touch on these a little bit later when we actually get to adding the merchant, stuff like that. BAMs are artwork. So everything from, item artwork to, ambience to spell animations to everything. They're all BAMs. Like pretty much all artwork is BAM of some type or another. BCS or scripts. We're also going to touch on these too. This is basically AI for creature, for areas. The game itself has a master AI script. Wandering Scholar, I to your question, I'm going to get to that in a second. Yes, it is going to be placed in the game. For now, I just want to do the items. Creatures, these are, obviously creature files in the game. So every creature, NPCs or otherwise is here. Dialogue files. We might touch on EFFs. EFFs are basically effects that you externalize, and there are reasons why you externalize, because you only want an effect to apply to a certain class or a certain race or only to undead, that sort of thing. So you can externalize it to an EFF file. The EEs generally have a better way of targeting effects than EFF files. I wouldn't say they're outdated, but these really come into their own on the original Baldur's Gate 2. On the EEs, generally we have better tools to target effects that way. But effectively, these are just one effect in a file. IDS is mainly for scripting. These are generally reference files. You probably will never have to actually modify an IDS file, but these are helpful if you ever need to look up, what are the values for class? What are the values for a race? That sort of thing. Generally reference files, but there are a few exceptions. I don't think we'll touch on any of them today. Item are obviously your item files. Let's see what else we got in here. Pro are projectiles. So any spell that has like, an area of effect, like a fireball or a cone of cold or a wall of moonlight, does that through a projectile. Not all of them are necessarily visible. They're also, if you just want something to invisibly, affect people within 15 feet of you, you do a projectile, you just do it without artwork. And then SPL are the spells. So there are a lot of things that are spells that you may not think, like kit abilities or traps also use spells to affect their changes. FJ Bard, these are all the Bard songs. So those are also here too. And then Wave is just music. And then VVCs are visual effects. We probably will not be modifying any of these, but this is where, if you have a spell that plays an effect, it will do it through a VVC, because this is how you do like multi-level effects. Like if you also have an opening and then a middle and then a closing effect, generally you're going to use a VVC. And everything else is probably not going to be stuff that unless you're doing a really unusual kind of heavy technical mod, you are probably not going to touch on, probably ever. 98% of your stuff is going to be within scripting, item spells, creatures, area files. If you're doing art, then BAMs. And that's pretty much it, right? I mean, like PLT is like paper dolls, right? The number of mods that modify paper dolls are practically none. So, but NI will give you access to all of these, but I just want to kind of give an overview of some of the files and and what we're going to be dealing with. And I meant to do this yesterday when we started with Near Infinity, and I forgot and just went straight into the items. So that was on me. So with all that done, before we go, or before we move on, if there's any other questions, by all means, at any point in the chat, I'm watching. If you guys want to ask anything, just feel free to ask. I'll answer what I can as I go along. I'm going to start with Wandering Scholar. He is correct in that in the item list, because we did Akabar's Battleblade. So I recalled he wanted this to go on Zalanora. So we are going to... I love, it's like a placeholder. I have no idea where it came from. I don't know if that's NI or in the game itself. It's just a placeholder because NI doesn't properly display paper doll stuff, or at least some of them. So Wandering Scholar, so we made Akabar's Battleblade, and he wants it to go on Zalanora. So let's double check that is, just to be safe. That is Zalanora. Come on. Yep, Mage 18Z. So first we're going to take a look at her inventory. It's a whole pile of random treasures. She doesn't actually have anything equipped, which makes life very easy for us. So we are going to pull up my TP2 again. And we're going to place the Battleblade. And so for this, Zalanora is an existing creature in the game. So we're going to use copy existing. Now the difference between copy and copy existing, copy is basically I have a file that I want to, that does not exist in the game or is outside of the game's structure. Copy existing means this is a game resource. Either it's in a BIF or if something else is modified ahead of us, is in the override. The nice thing with copy existing, we don't have to care, or we don't have to figure out if it's been modified, if it's still in the BIFs or if it's in the override. Waidu handles that for us completely behind the scenes. So we're going to copy an existing resource, mage18z.cree. 18z.cree. And same thing, we're going to modify it, and then we're going to drop it into the override. If it's there already, it updates the file. If it's not there, then it'll drop it in. Now, to add an item, thankfully, we have a Waidu command to do it directly for us. There it is, add creature item. So this is our syntax. I'm just going to copy this whole thing over. So we're going to add the creature item. The item name is G3CAC. The number of charges. So this item has one ability. We can go back. Let me demonstrate this. So go back to the item. So it has one magical ability that has one charge and then no other abilities. This is an equipping effect, so it only has one magical ability. So to match that, we're going to give it one charge for the first ability. These other two don't really matter because it doesn't have those abilities, but we'll put them at 0. All right, now flags. If we go back to the documentation, it'll explain what the flags are. So flags are things like should have come identified. Actually, let me go back. Let's not use the tutorial. Let's use the actual documentation. All right. So our flags can be none, identified, unstealable, stolen, or undroppable. And then we can combine them in different ways. Now, because it's a magical item, we don't want it to come identified, right? If we mark it as identified, then when the player picks it up, it doesn't have its blue tint, and the player can just use it right away. We also don't want it to be unstealable, because I think it's entirely fair if the player can pickpocket this. By all means, they should. We don't want to add a stolen flag. If the player steals it, like if the player pickpockets it, the game itself will add the stolen flag. The stolen flag only matters because certain merchants, unless they're a fence, they won't buy stolen goods. So the stolen goods doesn't really matter here. Undroppable is useful if you want to give an item to a creature that you want them to be able to use, but not, give it to a player. So where you normally see this with undroppable items in the game is usually like, for example, all undead creatures, rather than having a bunch of effects that, like stuff that undead is immune to, like panic, they all have one item. I think it's Ring 95. That basically has like a standard list of undead immunities. And then every undead has that, and then it's just undroppable. So they wear a ring that gives them, immunity to fear, but the player never sees it because it's flagged as undroppable. And you can do that with normal items, right? If you want, your creature to cheat, right, and you give it like a +5 sword, but you want your player to think, it wasn't that tough, and so you give them a +5 sword that they use that you make undroppable, and then you put a +1 sword in their inventory so that when they die they drop just the +1 sword. You can also use it for stuff like that. For this, we basically want none of these, so we're just going to use none, right? None of these flags apply. So for flags, we're going to put none. Now for inventory slots, you can see we can put it in any inventory slot that we want. In fact, we can list multiple ones. There were also, we can also use ring. And what ring will do is it'll use both left ring or right ring. If something's already in the left ring, then we'll try the other ring slot. So we're actually going to use, ring. Now the stuff in brackets, in the documentation, stuff in brackets means these are optional commands. So if we're adding a weapon, every creature has 4 weapon slots. And it can pick which one of those 4 weapons is equipped. So if we're adding a weapon and we want that to be the weapon that's currently equipped, you would use the equip flag. For a ring, obviously this doesn't make sense. Same with two-handed. If we're adding a two-handed weapon, you would use this flag because that basically indicates to either disable or move the item in the shield slot. Because if the creature has a two-handed sword and a shield, in the original Baldur's Gate 2, it will crash. The E's are smart enough to ignore the shield, but this is still important to indicate that something is two-handed. And then no move. So when you use add Cree item, it basically looks for an empty slot. So because I've specified ring, it'll look in the left ring, it'll look in the right ring slot. And the first one it finds that's open, it will put it in there. If it can't find any of those, it'll dump the item into the inventory. And so no move, basically, what can happen is it will push other items. If the inventory is entirely full, it will push items out. No move is a way to basically say, hey, if there's no open slots at all, just forget the whole thing. And it's very rare that a creature has that much inventory that you need to worry about it, but we're not going to worry about it. So that by itself means that this item should be added to it. Now, because we are doing an existing source, we are going to use but only, because it's entirely possible that if the inventory is full and this creature isn't actually Adam, then there's no reason to copy her. So let's do that really quick. Let's run this. And we've installed it. Let's go to Zalanora. Creature. She was what? Mage 18Z. One thing about Near Infinity. So you notice how Mage 18Z is in bold? That means that this file is actually in the override, that it's been modified somehow and it's now in the override. All these files are being pulled. If you look down here, it says it's coming from creature.biff. Whereas you notice her, she's now in the override because we have modified her. Because she's now wearing the battle blade in her left ring. So there we go. One other thing about if it's not a party NPC, we can also cheat, right? This is a ring, but we could put it in her amulet slot. We could put it in her armor slot. We could put it in any one of these equipment slots, because if it's not going to be in the party, like the player would never see that this was, in her belt slot, like if we wanted to do that. So we're trying to be proper and put it in the ring slot, because the nice thing too is that also means that the player tries to pickpocket her, they'll get the better ring slot attempt to steal rather than, the harder, like stealing it from an armor slot. So she's got it equipped. So we've got this item placed in the game. Wandering Scholar asks, I'm going to use any libraries for the project. If we need libraries for something, yes, I will use them, and I'll show how to use those. So far, I don't think we have a need for a library. If you've not modded before, a library is basically like a bit of code that you can share like between mods or even within a mod itself if you're using like the same bit of code over and over. The best way, for example, so both Icewind Dale, Sword Coast Stratagems, and Talents of Faerun all install the Icewind Dale spells. And so David and I have worked together, and those spells are actually installed by not just one library, it's multiple libraries because it's a big complex process. But basically, each one of those mods, because they share that code, you basically say, hey, use this library, and then we keep like the library in a separate place so that when it updates, now all three mods can use the updated code. So a library is a way to, like I said, reuse code or to centralize it. Oh, Blue Genie asks, so why are we adding to the ring slot? It's a ring. That's why. Despite the name, this is a ring, right? If it was a weapon, we'd add it to the weapon slot. But this is, I know it says Battle Blade, but it's actually, if we go to the item, it's an actual ring. It doesn't actually have any fighting abilities. So it gives her +2 armor class, and it lets her cast Blade Barrier once per day. It's not it's an actual ring. It's not a sword or anything else like that. Just like I said, despite the name, this is an actual ring. So yes, otherwise yes, we drop it into one of the weapon slots and have her equip it. The other thing that Wandering Scholar asked is not here but in the forums was to have her use it. And that's going to get into scripting, which I want to save for a little bit later. So I'm going to defer the usage of this item for now. For now, I just wanted to get her equipped and get it placed in game. Everything else is probably going to be in a store and a Wandering Merchant, but Wandering Scholar is correct that I missed this one, that this is supposed to be on Zalanora. So there's that. So that's kind of catching up. So before we move on, Glitter Gear had other items in her post or his post. I don't know. I shouldn't assume. So I was going to continue on with that unless there are other questions before we move on. I'm going to actually grab a throat drop here really quick. All right. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Blue Genie. All right. So without further ado, then let's go back to the forums. And we were on Glitter Gears. It's a little concerning that we're 2.5 hours in and we're on like item number 3. All right. The Countability and Summoning Matrices. It's another book. And it's going to... Oh, this should be another straightforward one because it's going to be another one that casts 2 spells. Although this one does have some actual restrictions on it. And the last one is also going to be... All right, so basically we've got 3 books that cast spells. So I'm going to go ahead and grab both of these descriptions and bring them over. And I'm just going to drop them here for now. All right. Oh, actually, let's bring this over into game.tray too. All right, so the name is going to be what? At 1004. And again, because these things always have weight on them, we'll do this. We'll clean up this text when we're done. And the next item is the power of real change. It's going to be at 1006. And at 1007. Let's fix that. Then same thing, we're going to add the weight at the bottom of this. All right, so the first item is going to be the accountability of in summoning matrices. And we're going to call this the CSM. This is going to be 4 and 5 as the descriptions. And so for this, we're going to start from the other Glitter item. So let's go back to G3. We'll start with the book. I was going to say it's going to be the CSM. Okay, but instead it's fire and air elementals once per day. So let's remove the current abilities. Let's find the spells, or the spell scrolls, I should say. It was fire and air, right? Fire and air, okay. All right. This is the cast, yes. Let's copy that. Paste. Remember to save it this time. It's fire. Let's do the same for air. And again, with spell scrolls, right, there's one ability for learning, one ability for casting. Learning is always the second ability on these, just by convention. So that's how I know I can just I want the second ability on both of these. All right, so we've got both of these here. Want it to be magical. We want it to be only usable after you identify the item. We want it to use, because the A, remember, is the scroll BAM. We want it to use the stone-backed BAM. Boom. We know that this is correct because we copied it from the scroll. We want the item to recharge after resting and have 1 charge per day. And then same with this. We want it to use the BBAM. We want it to only be usable after identification. We want it to recharge after resting, have 1 charge per day. And then again, we know all of this is correct. So save, overwrite, okay. And then, okay, what is the... Oh, and then while we're here, no, actually, I'll do that second. All right, so that's the compatibility and summoning matrices. And then what's the other one? Oh, and also, okay, so this one's only used by mages, bards, and sorcerers. So there is something we can do usability here. Usability is a bit of a pain in the butt in the game. And the reason why is because you can only exclude things. And it goes from the base class and then the kit. And the way that it's layered is that, for example, there's no way to allow a kit of a class to use an item that the base class cannot. So there's no way to, say, for example, allow a Battle Guard of Tempest to use an item that a generic cleric cannot use, because it will be excluded by the fact that, like, a bastard sword is excluded from clerics, therefore your kit can't use it. So it's a little frustrating because I know, especially kits, right, one of the ways that people like to balance them is like, oh, you can't use these weapons or you can use these weapons. And it's always a little disappointing that there aren't more tools to deal with that. Now, we did get some opcode 319 was added in the ease that lets you do some exclusions, but it's not, it's still not as flexible as you might like in terms of item exclusions. Now, the good news is this one is pretty simple. So you'll notice we have these 4 usable buys. These are for the kits. So you notice all the kits are listed here. The main one here has, you can do alignment restrictions. You can do restrictions by race. In this one, we want it only to be used by mages, sorcerers, and bards. So no to clerics. Cleric mage is okay. Cleric thief, no. Cleric ranger, fighter, fighter druid, fighter mage is fine. Fighter cleric, fighter FMC, FMT, fighter thief, mage, mage thief, no paladin, no ranger, no thief. Sorcerers use the same flag as mage. So if it's usable by mages, it's usable by sorcerers. Also don't want druids or monks. All right, no racial restrictions. No alignment restrictions. I think I've got everything. So we'll save it. So boom, there's our restrictions down to just mages and sorcerers and bards. All right, so let's save that. All right, now we'll go on to the next item, and we'll copy this again, but we're going to call it the power of real change. So we're going to do PRC. E3C PRC.item. Okay, and this one, polymorph self once per day, and only unusable by the Wizard Slayer. So I remove these. Oh, where's the Wizard Slayer? There it is. And I realized that also should be on Caster's Guide to Self-Defense, because he or she mentioned it there too, and I missed it. So, all right. So this one is going to be the PRC, and this one does polymorph self once per day. So we ditch the original abilities. Again, we'll be lazy and find the scroll. Polymorph self. Grab the first ability, copy. Paste, make our usual adjustments. We want it to be usable after identification. Oh, and polymorph self is, let's see, spell wizard 416. So we're going to do spell wizard 416B to get the right icon. All this is correct. I want it to recharge. It's again a 1 per day ability, so 1 charge, and we want it to recharge after resting. Save, overwrite, okay. So those items are pretty much done. So I'm going to come back to the override. Oh, let me get into the right folder. Tree testing. Go to the override. I grab the item. I'm also grabbing the item that we did yesterday because I just made an update to fix it. And then we'll bring these back to the item pack, drop them in the item folder. We do want to replace the one because it's changed. Notice how it's got the little red exclamation point because it's been changed. And now let's do a quick install test. All right, we have, oh, because I think I left the descriptions in the TP2. Yep, yeah, okay, that was dumb. All right. I think I also left it in game.tray. Oh, no, I didn't, okay. Oh, I still need to do the descriptions. Oh, shoot. Okay. So I need to change these over to charge abilities. All right. So summon fire elemental. And let's go to those spells. Oh, and also all right, so I think we still have, yeah, let's go to polymorph self. Let's grab a short description. It's going to be 1 turn plus 3 rounds per level. We're casting it at level 10. So it's 1 turn plus 30 rounds. So 4 turns. It's going to be our duration. And we'll say the wizard is able to form another creature. Oops. To this. And because this is usable by non-wizards, we'll say the caster. And that's going to be 4 turns for the duration. All right, now let's go to the fire elementals. Okay, just go to the spells directly. For fire. And we'll just say summons a fire elemental. A fire elemental is summoned in the vicinity of the caster. And it's 1 turn per level. This will be cast at level 10, so this is going to be 10 turns for duration. All right, and then we'll do the same for air elemental and air elemental is summoned. And same duration? Yeah, same duration. Oh, let's try that again. Same thing, it'll be 10 turns. Boom. I can delete this because that's no longer needed. Oh, keep that gap. All right, now let's install it. All right, this is clean. I made this. Did I save it? I did. All right. All right, we did have an error. I can't find G3CSM. Did I name it incorrectly? Yes, I did. It's a triple C. It should be a double C. All right. There we go. All right, so now let's refresh the tree. Let's go to our items. We should now have... Did I not update the names on these? The names are incorrect. Oh, because this should be 6 and 7. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Oh, because this is the PRC. Oh. All right, so some silly errors. This is why you double check even when you think you're doing simple stuff. All right. Now let's double check this tree again. Hello, Tora. Just casually walking across the screen. I'm not sure if you guys saw him or not. All right, so now we have right caster's guide. Why is this? Power reveal change is correct. Why is the... Oh, because this is left over from the override file, or from the override folder. All right, I need to delete this. This is a leftover because I named it wrong. All right, so we have Countability and summoning Matrices, fire elemental, air elemental. Yep, this is correct. This is correct. All right, so I'm going to butcher your name, so I apologize. Mikhail, the Duke, asks, add create item with more than 3 abilities. Is it possible? Not really. And the reason why is in an item, you can add as many abilities as you want. You know, if you want to have, you know, a sword that has, you know, can cast 17 spells, you can do it. And the problem is that if we go to an actual creature file, so, and let's look at Zalanorva, for example, because we added something to her. If you go into the actual item index, which is way down here at the bottom. So in the creature file, it stores like, hey, she has a random treasure 05, and then down here it says which slots it's in. But if you were to go to the actual Akavar's Battle Blade, this is only 14 bytes, or well, it's 14 hexadecimal bytes, but which is like 20 bytes of information. There are only 3 slots. So even if an item has a 4th or 5th or 6th or however many abilities you want to add, there's no way for the creature to store that information. So I don't think that the game can even track charges on a 4th or a 5th ability, which means either knowing how code usually works, that means either like your fourth ability will either have 0 charges or infinite, and I have no idea which it is, but that's the problem. That's why most items you'll see almost always, I can't think of any item that has more than 4 abilities offhand. And that's the reason why, is because this creature files and also anywhere else that stores items. So items that are like in a container, in an area file. Area files use this exact same 20 bytes of information to store item information when it's in an area or a chest. So the item listing itself on creatures and areas only supports 3 charges. So that's why add create item, it doesn't even let you specify a 4th, 5th, or 6th charge, because it has nowhere to write it when you add it to a creature. And so Incrementitis asks, would it be technically wrong if we added the level of the spell included in this charge ability? So you mean like, so I'm the problem is we're on a lag, so you're gonna have to answer me, and I'm probably not gonna say the answer for like a minute. But do you mean that the item casts the spell at the caster's level, or do you mean that we, in the item description, we just put like cast, instead of saying it cast haste, it cast the 3rd level spell haste? I'm not sure I understand your question. So I know chat is lagging, so I'll look for your answer, but because I'm not sure which of those two things you're asking, and the answer will depend. All right, so now the other thing we're going to do is, because the summoning matrices, like the guide to self-defense, has 2 abilities, we're again going to do the tooltip thing. Now, because the tooltip thing is going to be referenced multiple places, I'm going to start organizing the mod a little bit. So first we're going to do like a 2DA section. Usually I do 2DA and IDS files together. Not that I think we have any IDS edits, but we'll put these here together. And then this way, this lets me consolidate all of my tooltip edits in one place. And then I'm also going to create an item section, which is obviously going to be the bulk of this. This is just how I like to organize my mod. You're free to do it however you want. So this is... So now the other thing too is, now tooltip is going to be a multi-line append. So we are going to now add to this. And then, let's delete that. And that's going to be XX -1. We'll look these up in a second. All right, so it basically casts the 2 elemental spells. So let's grab the strings for those names off the spells themselves. We want Conjure Fire Elemental, which is 15-11. So 15-11, and then I used the priest version. Well, they used, okay, so really quick, I'm pretty sure fire uses the same one, 15-11 it does. All right, and then air is 24-8-39. So I've got air second. Let me verify that that's the order that they're on the item. Items, come back to the G3. Summoning matrices. The first ability is, we've got fire first. Okay, so that's the same order we did tooltip. So note, you can do multi-line appends, right? You just manually add your own little line break, and it's going to add both of these lines to the end of the file. So the nice thing is, any other items that we need to do tooltips for, we can just keep adding to this append as many items as we need to. Just as long as it begins with a little tilde and ends with a little tilde, it's good to go. You can do multi-line appends. And then also I'm going to break this into, let's also do creature edits. And we'll move Zalanora's thing down here as well. The other thing too is this code is agnostic, right? You notice that we're updating tooltip before we install the items, because the order here, unless this explicitly, unless we're doing something with an item that we expect to be in the override, this can all be done in whatever order we want it to, right? We're doing the tooltips before this. We could do Zalanora's edit before we even create the battle blade. The order within the TP2 is not all that important. So Increment I has asked, would it be technically wrong? Okay, the level in the spell description adding into the item. We can certainly do that. I mentioned this yesterday. But what I like to do is match the item descriptions of the items I'm adding as closely as possible to what's already in the game. Because to me, the hallmark of a good mod is that you can't tell if it's mod content or not. Now, I wouldn't add the spell, like, I assume you mean like something like, like third level spell haste once per day or something along those lines. I don't do that because the existing items in the game that cast spells don't do that. So if I were to do that, then that means this item, when you hit the item description, you'd be like, oh, this is different. This must be from a mod, which is exactly what I don't want to do. You certainly can do it if you want to, but that's why I'm not doing it. But people have different approaches to modding. That's just how I do it. So that's why you certainly can, and you're more than welcome to, but that's why I don't do it. And that's why we're not going to be doing it in this mod, at least. So we've finished with Glitter Gear's items. So let's go ahead and let's go add these to our GitHub, Tortoise Git, add the files, boom, grab the whole thing. We're going to make a commit. And so we've added the 2 items. We had that one correction to an existing item. I don't know why these aren't checked by default. Normally it checks those by default. I'm not sure why it's not doing that automatically. So we've added these 2 items. We made changes to the TP2, obviously, because we added code for 2 more items. We added, we made changes to game.tray. And the nice thing is, right, if you're ever like, wait, what did I change? You can double click on these and it pulls up a comparison for you. So this is what's currently in the repo. And sometimes you got to be careful. What has changed on this line? I added 2 spaces. So sometimes this isn't always the most useful of compares. But you can see, right, this is all new. This is all new. This is all new. So if you're ever like, why is it trying to commit this? You can be like, okay, that's why we added all of this. Now, if it's a binary file like an item, it won't be able to tell you, say this is not a text file. Knock it off. And so we're going to make the commit. We're going to say added 2 more items from Glitter Gear. Now, so far I've just been doing like 1-line commit messages. Like, I have this entire space that I can write up like a detailed, huge ass commit message if I need to. Because these are small and pretty straightforward commits, I've not been doing that. But if I'm doing something experimental, like I will take the time to write up like 10 paragraphs of text explaining what I'm doing. I did that. I made a couple of really experimental branches of tweaks, and I tried this. But generally, you want to make it so that you understand what you're doing. And again, for a commit this size, it's nice and small, pretty straightforward. We're adding 2 items. This is a perfectly reasonable commit message. This is a lot like the comments in the code. You're writing this so that when you come back later, and this is what I do, like when I'm doing a release of tweaks, I'll go to the commit log, and that's how I build up my change log when I do a new release. I'll be like, I made 40 commits. Let's see what I was doing in those 40. And so this information is for myself when I get to a release of like, so what did I do since the last version? So the commit messages are important in that way they're like comments in your code, right? They're important for yourself. To a lesser degree, they're important for people following the project to know what you did. Like, for example, I'm saying I added 2 more items. I also fixed a bug in an existing item, but I mean, I could mention it, but I don't really think it's all that important. So We're going to say add 2 more items from Glitter Gear. Commit and push. Boom. Anybody who's following the repo or is in the Discord just got a little message that, hey, the repo just updated again. So there we go. We have a new commit, added 2 more items. So there we go. That's all of Glitter Gear stuff, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. All right, so let's go on to our third entry. The Vine Shield. Minor unresolved issues, nothing you can't figure out. I love J. Mary's confidence. All right. A small shield. Armor class +1. And the wearer is hit. The attacker must make... Oh, so it causes an entangle on its attacker for 2 rounds. Interesting. Okay. All right. Let's grab this. Let's bring it over to the TP2 so you don't have to keep tabbing back and forth. The Vine Shield. So it's a small shield, so let's go grab... All right, what's our closest item? Small shield +1. We're going to make a copy of this. It's going to be G3 community, and then we'll call it Vine, since it's the Vine Shield. Alrighty. So it's already got its armor class bonus. So this is something you'll see in shields, and it's a bit of a trick. Small shields grant armor class bonuses to everything except for missiles. So what this does is you'll notice it grants 2 to all weapons, but then it takes away 2 from missile weapons. So your overall bonus to missile weapons is 0. And so you also, like, small shields do this, bucklers do this. What they could have done is they could have gone... Instead of doing this to all weapons, do multiple effects. 1 for crushing, 1 for piercing, 1 for slashing. But it's easier to just basically say 2 overall, but not the missile. So that's how small shields and bucklers do, like, the special exceptions. Oh, no worries. And if I answer something and it's not complete or you don't understand, ask again. I mean, that's the whole point of this. So no problem. Happy to answer your question. All right, so we've got our small shield set up. You notice it's got a bunch of set color effects. I mentioned this in the last stream, but for now, at least, we're not worrying too much about colors and item bams. We're going to do a pass kind of at the end of everything. So, and then what it does is it does an entangle for 2 rounds. And he wants to do a saving throw for spell at a -2 penalty. All right, so retaliatory effects. I'm going to pull up Keldorn's Sword does this, which is like NPC Sword somewhere in here. The Hallowed Redeemer. So retaliation effects are cast spell on condition. Let me pull this up. So this is something that, you know, Fire Shield uses. Keldorn's Sword uses. I think somebody, you know, Thorns effects, sort of stuff like that. So basically, there's a fixed list of conditions where you can have this trip, right? In this case, it's going to be exactly like Keldorn's Sword. If anybody hits me, I want you to target the person who hit me with this specific spell. And the spell is what does the actual damage. So like Keldorn's Sword does what? I think it does damage, 5 points of magic damage to anybody who damages the wielder. So anybody who hits them gets targeted by Keldorn by spell, and I'm sure if we go to keldorn.spell, sure enough, 5 points of magic damage get inflicted to the last hitter, you know, whoever just hit him. So this is pretty much exactly what we need, except instead of keldorn.spell, we're going to be doing something slightly different, since it's an entangle and not a damage. But the good news is, because this has pretty much everything that we want, we are simply going to copy this. I bring it over to our Vine Shield. We're going to paste it. And now, instead of Keldorn.spell, we're going to change this. We're going to create a spell, and we're going to call it We're going to make it match this. It's going to be G3C Vine, which obviously we haven't created yet, but there we go. Now, we could do the save here, or we could do the save on the spell. Either way works. In this case, I'm going to put it in the spell itself. But we could do it here. The only thing you really want to avoid with this is not putting it in both places, because if I specify a save here, and then I also specify a save in the spell, you basically give the target 2 chances to save. So that's why at least one of these you want it to be, you omit the save on at least one of these. So boom, with that, the item should pretty much be done. Save, overwrite, okay. Now we need to make that actual spell. So obviously it's an entangle. We'll start with the entangle spell. And now we're going to get into spell editing, which we've not done yet. So just like items, I'm going to give a quick brief overview of spells. In a lot of ways, they're exactly like items, right? You have this fixed section that is on every spell, right? You got the name. This is the casting sound. This is like the sound that the caster makes when they make it. Actually, hold on. I'm gonna make the copy of it first. Did I already do it? No, I did not. All right. Yeah. Let me make a copy of it. That way I can mess around with it. All right. I'm just gonna add a copy. This is gonna be g3cvine.spell. Okay. So this is the sound that plays when it's cast. Because it's going to be a retaliatory spell, we don't really need one. Now, I don't think it plays anyway, but just for safety, we'll put it in as done. Flags for behavior, should this break a sanctuary? Should this cause the target to go hostile? A bunch of other, should it ignore dead and wild magic? Yes. And ignore wild surges? Yes. Because this is an ability effect that shouldn't be affected by dead and wild magic or wild surges. It shouldn't break sanctuary, because this is, again, a retaliation effect. The spell type doesn't really matter. We're going to set it to an 8, but frankly, it doesn't really matter here. Exclusions, again, it's from a spell. It doesn't matter. Casting animation, we're also going to change to none, although, again, it shouldn't matter. We are going to keep... Well, should we? Yeah, we are going to keep the spell school and the secondary type. The school type generally is whether or not you think spell immunity should block this. And because this is such a spell-like effect, my inclination is yes, but it doesn't. This isn't always clear-cut, especially when you're coming to effects for items. Generally, they're school-less, but not always. So this is kind of the modder's discretion. In this case, I'm going to leave it. The secondary type is used by a few spells and spell effects to remove certain types of spells. For example, this is why Breach removes Stone Skin, because Breach targets the specific secondary type that Stone Skin and Iron Skin use, which I think those are flagged as combat protections, and Breach specifically removes combat protection. So secondary type, not all that important, but there we go. The icon will never be seen, so I don't care. Same with the spell description. This will never be seen. The spell name will be seen because that will show up in the combat log. So we do want to keep that there. So all of this is on every spell. Now, Entangle is simple in that it doesn't have like a scaling duration. Let me go to Magic Missile as an example. So you'll notice spells in particular, or even just let's go to Magic Missile. Unlike item, spells have tons of headers, right? And you can see this. And the reason why they do that is any spell that scales, its duration or its effects per level has a header for every level where it's different. So if you notice this, there's a level 1 header. There's a level 3 header. There's 5, 7, 9. And that's because at Magic Missile, at every one of these levels, it gets... at level 1, it shoots 1 magic missile. At level 3, it shoots 2, 3 missiles, 4 missiles, 5 missiles. So because the effects are different, You need a header at every level where it's going to be different. And that includes even if it's just by duration, right? If your spell increases a round per level, you need a header. And every one of these has effects, unique effects to every header. Now, Magic Missile is a little unique in that all these are the same, but you'll notice the projectile changes. It shoots 1 magic missile, 2 magic missiles, 3 magic missiles, 4 missiles, 5 missiles. But any spell, usually it's just duration, but like, Fireball uses the same projectile at all levels, but it does different damage at every level. So any spell that scales per level has a ton of headers. So that is like the major difference between spells and items. Fortunately, Entangle is the same for everything, right? There's just one header. And being as this is just supposed to be a single effect that lasts for, I think, 2 rounds, I think he said in the save through for spell, 2 penalty for 2 rounds. This doesn't scale, so this would just be, we're going to set this to a straight 2 rounds. So let's go into the actual spell effects here. Now, Entangle is an area of effect spell, and we're changing this to where it is just going to affect the person hitting. So it is no longer any point within range. It is now targeting a living actor. Similarly, projectiles are what changes something from an area of effect to a single target. So we're going to remove the projectile down to none, and now it is a single target spell instead of Entangle. It's no longer doing that big 15-foot radius spell effect. It's now a single target. Let's double check. So the movement rate bonus, it is multiplying it, and it is setting it to 0. It's setting the armor class bonus to -2. It plays sounds, it puts on the Entangle overlay, and then it plays the Entangled icon. Now, one of the obnoxious things here is that each one of these already has they have a save or spell, but the save bonus is wrong. So we have to change this on every one of them. So change that to -2. Change this to a -2. There is an easy way to do this in one pass with Waidu, but and then I also need to check the durations too, because these are supposed to last 2 rounds. Duration 2 rounds is 12 seconds. So let's get back to this. 12 seconds. Save at -2. This is a sound that plays when it starts, so there's no duration. That's why it's instant permanent. This is probably the obnoxious hit sound. Yeah. So savers at -2. This sound, so timing mode delay permanent means that it plays this once, and being as this plays at the end, this is like the ending sound to let you know that the Entangle is done. So I'll also change this to -2. Let's try that again. -2. Entangle overlay should last for 12 seconds. Save at -2. And then finally the portrait icon. Save at -2 and for 12 seconds. So there we go. Everything should be, we can double check. Spell -2, -2, -2, duration 12, 12, 12, 0, 12, and 12. Those are all correct. Oh, and power levels. All right, so this is one of the things with effects I've not talked about at all. So every effect has a power. Now, when you see like an item or a spell that says, hey, it protects you from, level 1 spells, what it means is it blocks anything with a power level of 1. Generally, anything that's like anti-magic will use a power level of 0. Even if it's like a level 6 spell or whatever, it'll use 0 so that it bypasses most level protections like that. So our question here is, should creatures who are immune to level 1 spells also be immune to this Entangle effect? And because it's not an actual spell, I don't think it should. So we're going to say this should, for example, like liches are immune to like level 1 through 5. I don't see any reason why they should be blocking this. So we're going to, and again, this is also very much by ear. You know, you can make the case either way that they can, or that, you know, that a level 1 spell protection should also block this. And there are reasonable arguments on both sides. This is just my preference, and this is also something where if I were to hear a good argument for why this should be spell 1 for level 1, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Because this is something that we go back and forth with all the time. So there's not a bright and clear answer here. So just like that, let's go ahead and save the spell. Okay. And then, oh, hey, Diogo. The other thing is we're going to leave the spell name intact on this, because if we leave it blank, then nothing is in the combat log. This way, if we leave entangle here, you know, if somebody hits the wielder of the shield in the combat log, it will say entangle, and you know whether or not they've made a save or not. So we're going to leave entangle intact here. So let's go ahead and save it. Now let us grab. We're going to do these back into the TP2. We're going to go back to the override folder. We're going to grab the spell and the item. We're going to come back to the mod, put the item here, and put the spell in the spell folder. All right, so now we go back to our TP2. And we need a new header for spells. Now, the spell doesn't actually need any strings, right? It's got the existing entangle string. So in this case, we are actually just going to go Vine Shield Retaliation spell. And it's G3C Vine.spell. And because it doesn't need any strings, it's literally just going to be just a straight up copy. That's all we need for this. All right. Now the item, though, the item does need strings, which are going to be 8 and 9. All right. Let's copy this over to our text file. Okay, 1008. All right. Oh, and oh, this is another chance for me to rant about something I don't like. So he put in whether or not this should be Vine Shield, named Vine Shield or Vine Shield +1. For unique items, I hate adding the plus to it, because if this item were Vine Shield +1, to me, it implies that somewhere out there there's a Vine Shield +2 or a Vine Shield +3 or a Vine Shield whatever. This is something that the EEs did that I can't stand, because, you know, if it's something like Celestial Fury, there's only one. It's Celestial Fury. It should not be named Celestial Fury +3. Carcimer, there are two versions of Carcimer, so you need to designate Carcimer +5 and Carcimer +6. So yes, it makes sense for Carcimer. It doesn't make sense for anything else that's unique, like Condar. Condar is just Condar. It doesn't need Condar +1. So same here. This is just going to be the Vine Shield. And then the description. Grab all of this. And then again, we're going to go back to the game and see how the game formats all this stuff. All right, let's go back to the game. Let's go back to the small shield. I think it was Shield 02. Oh, I'm in spells. Shield 02. And let's just grab this for now. Come back to the tray file. Equipped armor class +2, no protection against missile attacks. And then let's see how Keldorn's sword formats its retaliation. Okay, 5 points of magic. Okay. And that's under equipped abilities. So we're going to say, instead of 5 points of magic damage, it's going to be entangle Save verse spell. Oh, shoot. I now want to delete that whole line again. Let's try that again. Entangles. Any who damage the wielder. Save verse spell at -2 to negate. And for 2 rounds. And entangles, not entangles. Oh, and then he wants it to be a 2-weight item, not a 3-weight. Okay. So let me go back and correct that on the shield. The weight, he wants it to be 2 instead of 3. Boom. Save, override, okay. And then that means we need to get an updated version from the game. Since I just made that change. I want the item. Bring it back into the folder. Boom. Replace the item. Let's just do a quick install test to make sure everything's working. All right, we have a parse error in the TP2 at line 73 near parentheses. So let's see what we've done wrong. TP2 at line 73 near parentheses. Oh, I haven't saved this. That's why. It's still using an old version. Let's try that again. Error loading. Oh, because I have the path wrong. The spell is in the spell folder, not the item folder. Okay. This is the kind of everyday screw ups that you guys don't get to see. There we go. Now it is installed. Let's check. Go to the items. G3C Vine. Everything looks good. Armor class 2. Not against missiles though. Entangles. Requires 4 strength. That should be copied, yeah, straight from the original item. Has the normal usabilities for small shields. And then it casts G3C Vine whenever they're hit. G3C Vine we can take a look at. Entangles and a -2 for 2 rounds. And we are done. So that is the Vine Shield. So I just realized we're like almost an hour and a half into this. I'm going to take a quick break and get some cough drops in me so that I don't lose my voice, and we'll be back in about, let's say, 3 or 4 minutes. So sit tight, everyone. Oh, I unmuted the wrong thing. I unmuted my desktop audio, so you got to enjoy that instead of... I was trying to say, I don't know if you can see him or not, but under the chair is our light gray cat. That is Zorro. That's our 6-month-old kitten. Hello, Zorro. He is going nuts with the little bit of cat tower that's by the chair. But I think he's too far away from the microphone for you to be able to hear him squeaking. There he goes. He's doing a little crab catting this morning. So if you hear any little high-pitched squeaking, that's him. So I was just saying, we're just going to make a commit for the Vine Shield to indicate that we've added it. So that's all. We added the Vine Shield. We added item, not a spell, the DB2 and the tray changes. Commit and push. Boom, boom, boom. And we're done. All right, so on to our next item. What do we got? Oh, this is Lynx's, the fart boots. Pair out worn out boots, good grips. They give you +1 luck. But then undocumented has a 3% chance to play a fart sound and to give a -1 luck for 1 round. Okay. The sound I'm going to have to... we'll set a sound, but I'm going to have to go find one. Usually for stuff like this, I go looking in Creative Commons to see if I can find something, which sometimes that can take a little bit longer, so I'm not going to do that on stream. We'll just set it up and then give -1 luck for 1 round. So this is going to be a little bit similar to the Vine Shield in that this is going to be another cast spell on condition effect. So first let's make the basic boots, and then we'll do that. All right, so what do? We find a pair of boots that's going to start from where we want. And he wants it to use the worn out boots icon, so we can start right here. Add a copy of these into, what does he want to call these? Like the slippery something? The slippery court. So we'll call these the G3C. Let's just do it with court, not item. Right, that's 8, yeah. That's the other thing. This game is so old, you do still have to, you are limited by 8 characters. So that's why every one of these has to be short. All right. So now let's see. Do we have... I know Alora's rabbit foot from Baldur's Gate does the luck. I'm not sure if that item is actually in. It is. Oh, but it just does the luck bonus. It doesn't everything else. All right, I'm going to hop over into Baldur's Gate EE. There it is. And grab Alora's item. And just double check what all is involved in luck. Because luck is, if I remember right, it's not just the luck bonus. Yeah, see, it's supposed to give all these save versus death. Pretty much 5% to everything. All right, so armor class. Oh, and hers is luck +2. Yeah, luck +2. All right, armor class, all the saves. And then pretty much all the thief abilities get 5%. All right, so I'm going to note this down really quick. All right, so we need AC, saves, and then all the thieves, which are 59, 91. And I'm just going to do these by opcode, 59, 91, 92. 275, 276, 277. 277 is, yeah. And then luck directly, which is 22. Because I'm pretty sure, I don't think we can copy these between games. Let's find out. Because I think it clears those out when we go to a different game. Are we lucky? Oh, it does transform over. Oh, I didn't think it used to do that. All right. So Alora's charm gives 2 luck. For this item, it's only 1 luck. So we're going to go just to 1. Oh, and then the other thing too is there's also a... No, we'll keep this way. We'll do, this is a 1. A 1. This is where it gets a bit tedious. one. The thieving skills only get 5% bonuses, not 10. Oh. And now Zordo is chasing around Chaco. So once again, we have our cats. Hello, Chaco. Chaco's walking right in front of me, but in a way that I think you can only see her tail on the camera. All right, so that is the equipped +1 luck. Nice and done, nice and easy. Now the complicated thing here is going to be from the Vine Shield, I'm going to copy over the 232. Put it here. Hi, sweetie. And except this time, the condition is going to be, I thought there was a... There's a way to do this every round. I don't think it's delay. All right, I might have to do this a different way then. All right, so let me think this through. So every round there needs to be a 3% chance of something happening. So the easiest way to do that is you set it up so that when you equip the item, it casts a spell on you. And that spell is the one that has a 3% chance to basically give you the negative luck and the sound. And then, but that will only cause it to happen once when you equip the item. So the spell has a 3% chance to give you -1 luck, but it has a 100% chance to cast itself again in a round. Now the problem with that is that so basically the spell will keep casting itself once a round, and every time it does that, it's got a 3% chance of doing negative luck. However, that spell is now independent of the item. So if you take off the item, now that spell will keep going even though you no longer have the item equipped. So this is where we do something a little bit sneaky. So we are going to have, yeah, this is a little more complicated than you might think, because essentially what we're going to have it do is it's going to cast a spell that casts another spell. Yeah, this is going to have to be what we do. So while you're wearing the item, you are immune to spell A. And so essentially, when you put on the item, it's going to cast spell A and spell B. Spell B. Oh yeah, it's been a while since I've done this, so I need to think this through. So it's going to block spell A. The only thing that spell A does is spell A blocks spell B. So essentially, when you take it off, it ends up removing that, and then, yeah, all right, yeah, this is how we do it. So you equip the item; it has spell A and spell B. While you have the item equipped, you are immune to spell A. All spell A does is spell A blocks spell B. So essentially, while you're wearing the item, you're immune from A, which prevents you from being immune to B. B delivers the payload. And if you remove the item, you are no longer immune to spell A. Spell A goes into effect, and it kills spell B, which delivers the payload. This is a little more complicated, but there's not really a good way to do a repeating effect that is attached to, that is dependent on an item being equipped. But this is kind of your only way to do it. So So yeah, this is the fun part of, you know, sitting down and trying to think this through. Is like, okay, how do we actually do this? So yeah, this is one of the times where, all right, so the first thing we need to do is we're going to use, so this item is G3C Court. We're going to name the spells G3C Core A and Core B. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an effect. Actually, let's add it to the bottom of the list. We're going to make this 206 is immunity to a spell. We wanted this to be for itself. No string. We want it to be while equipped. It should not be dispellable or blocked by magic resistance. We want this to always be in effect. And this is going to be, edit this as a string. There it is. And we're going to block G3C Core A. No save, no special. Oh, it's still not the last. Yeah. There we go. Now it's the last effect. Now we're going to have this. Actually, now let me remove this. We're going to duplicate this. Except the second one is going to be, we're going to cast a spell on self. We're going to have it cast instantly while equipped, 100%. In this case, we're going to cast B. Okay. I think this should work. So now we need to make those spells. So I'm just going to grab a random innate here and use that as the basis. So we're going to add this as G3C Core A. Like I said, the only point of Core A is that it blocks B. So we don't need any of this. Actually, we may want to keep one of these. Yeah, let's keep this as, well, should it be here on the other spell? Yeah, let's go and do it here. So what this does is I'm having the spell as its first effect remove itself. And the reason why, when you're doing something like this, if you're mashing like save and load, you can sometimes have these effects stack up, and so you'll have multiple applications of these spells going. So the nice thing on this is this will essentially, if you get into a case where it's trying to double up the spell, it will remove previous castings and then apply it fresh. So that's what this 321 is doing, and it's targeted itself. We're actually going to do this for both of these. We're going to do this against A and B. And by default, these 321s, they're always instant permanent, so the timing doesn't quite matter as much. But it will matter for... Now we're going to change this into a 206. Against B, no text. Except this one, we're just going to make instant limited for like 2 seconds, just long enough for it to go into effect. Because all it needs to do is just block the application, just interrupt the application once, and that's all it needs to do. Whoops. Get back here. All right. And then let's save this. Save, overwrite, okay. Right. All right. And then we're going to use this as B. All right. So B, we're going to do the same thing, right? Just to make sure we don't double up, we're going to have it clear out A and B. Just to be safe. We don't need that. What we actually, you know what we do need? Hold on, let me save this really quick. I need to go back to the item and grab all those luck effects again. Let me grab all of these. Let's go back to those spells. Paste all these effects. Okay, except, so here's the thing. There's supposed to be a 3% chance where instead it gives you -1 luck. Now, there's two ways to interpret that, right? That could mean that Lynx wants it to cancel out the luck so that you get 0 luck for that round. But I think he means that we want it to override. So the item provides 1 luck. So in order to get them down to -1 luck, it means we need to not -1, but go -2 on these to override the existing luck effects that are always in effect. The other thing to do is we need to change this to a 3% chance. So remember, it's inclusive. So 3% means on a roll of 0, 1, or 2. So that's our 3% chance. So we need, and unfortunately, we need to change that on all of these. Actually, I think I can. Let's see. I think I can do this. Oops. Yeah, there we go. Now these ones we're going to do something slightly different because this needs to be a -10. We can now copy these to the other thieving bonuses. Finally luck, except this one is another -2. All right, so let me save this really quick. And then the other thing this needs to do is that, so it does all of this stuff instantly, right? As soon as the spell is cast, it does it. What we also need it to do is recast itself. Let's use the last effect. This is me just being anal retentive. In this case, it doesn't really matter, but we need it to recast itself at the end of 1 round. It needs to cast itself, and then it also needs to cast the A spell in case the item is removed. So we want it to cast instantly. In this case, caster level doesn't matter because none of these have multiple headers. They're all level 1 spells. We want it to cast it on itself. Instant limited. We want this to always happen. Or not instant limited. We want this to be cast after 1 round. And we want it to cast G3C core A. And then we also want it to cast B. There we go. And do these all have... Oh, I need to fix the durations on all of these. The durations for these shouldn't be instant while equipped because this is supposed to last for a round. So the duration on these should be instant limited and a duration of 6. So let me fix that. All right, you need to be instant limited and only for, because this is only supposed to be a 1 round effect. So let's copy that. So you've done. This is, I know, the very exciting part of the stream, I know. Now, for the record, we could do some of this with whydo, like when we copy it over, but I'm trying to not overwhelm you with a bunch of just random code. But like, there's a way in whydo where you can basically, when you copy this over, you can basically say, hey, everything that has, you know, when you copy the spell, if it has an instant while equipped timing mode, change it to instant limited and give it a 6-second duration. I'm trying not to overwhelm you too much with the code at this point, but you don't, tedious stuff like this, you don't always necessarily have to do it in editor. And again, let me reorder this to here. But I'm doing it because I think it's a little easier for you to follow. Wandering Scholar just said he made the fart sound. I don't want to ask questions about how or why. So let's go ahead and add that. In this case, playing a sound is opcode 174, and I know this just because I have been in this engine for too long. We wanted to play on the person who has it equipped. We want to, generally, if you play sound effects, if you specify a sound effect as permanent, the engine will play the sound once, and it doesn't matter how long it is. If I specify like instant limited and give it a duration, it will replay the sound until the duration is complete. So if you have like a 3-second sound and you do it as an instant limited for 12 seconds, it will replay that sound until those 12 seconds are up. So if you just want something to play, if you just want a sound to play once, you do instant permanent, you give it no duration. And then this one is the same as the others. It should have a 3% probability to go with it. And then we're going to name the sound, whatever Wandering Scholar has given me the file, we're going to rename it to G3C Court. Or not Court. Not. Oh, no, it is G3. Yeah, not Court. No saves. Everything else is fine. All right. So let us save this. So again, this is a little more complicated. So when the player puts on the ring or puts on the boots, they're going to be immune to spell A. When you put on the boots, you're going to be immune to spell A. It's going to cast spell B. Spell B is what gives you the 3% chance for the negative luck on the fart sound. And then spell B, after 1 round, will cast spell A and spell B. Now, if you are still wearing the ring, spell A will be ignored because it's being blocked or by the boots. If you are still wearing the boots, it will block spell A. And then it will recast spell B, which will give you a 3% chance for the fart sound and the negative luck for the next round. And then after that round expires, it will once again cast spell A and spell B. If you remove the boots, you are no longer immune to spell A. Spell A will take effect, and it will block spell B and clear out any existing effects from both spell A and spell B. So that's the basic idea of how this works. Like I said, this is a little more complicated. It doesn't quite work in the sense that if you get that negative luck bonus and then you remove the boots, that luck bonus will persist for the rest of the round. So it's not exact, but this is, this is like good enough, right? That's where we're going with this. So, and it's a little complicated because there's no way Well, I take that back. There might be an easier way that somebody will pop in the thread like, oh, you could have just done this. It's entirely possible. There are multiple ways to do things in the engine, and there's not always like, this is like the way to do it. So there might be an easier way to do this, but at least this is how I know how to do it. And the nice thing with this is the way that this is done, this doesn't really require anything specific that is EE, so this will be easier to port back to the original game. So let me just double check. Yeah, that has got all that. A does remove, and blocks B. Yes, that's correct. B just removes itself. And then applies all the stuff and does the sound. All right, so I think this is all good to go. Let me double check that the item. So this is, and the nice thing is this is a very good example of an item that you go, oh, this is a nice simple idea, and then you get to implementation and you realize that it's actually, it's one of those things that is surprisingly easy to describe, and then you get into the engine and you're like, wait, we have to do what now? And there are a lot of these things where you're just like, this is surprisingly more difficult than you think it is. And the engine's full of this stuff. There's stuff that you think is be complicated that's really easy because it was something the developers did. And there's stuff like this that the developers never anticipated that you basically have to fool the engine into doing something clever. And that is, in a lot of ways, that's kind of Infinity Engine modding in a nutshell. So let's just go ahead and wrap this item up. Basically, it gives you +1 luck to everything while equipped. And then while it's equipped, it blocks spell A. That is correct. And then when you first put it on, you will instantly cast spell B, and then spell B becomes self-sustaining. So yes, all of this is correct. So now to do the WeDo part, let's go to let's go back to the override file or the override folder. Let's grab our new spells and items. There are the spells. Let's put the item in the item folder. All right. Now the spells, because you don't want them to show up in the combat log, again, this is just going to be more copies. In fact, because none of these things need any modifiers, we're going to do it in a mass copy. This is going to be G3C core A and B. I don't need that anymore. All right, this is going to be strings 10 and 11. And let me go back to the forum. Let me grab all this, slippery court. It's G3C court. And this is the slippery court. All right. And now let's set up the strings for these. Let's go back to game. This is going to be .10. It's going to be the slippery court. Let's put the capital C. And at 10, 11. It's going to be a pair of worn out boots. And then, all right, yeah, we did all that stuff. Since that's undocumented, obviously that doesn't become part of the description. Let's go to, actually, let's go back to Alora's ring because that has luck. And there we go. We'll just copy it like this. Except that Alora's gives +1 luck. We're just giving, or hers does +1 luck. This is just, come on. This item just gives 1 luck, so it's +5 to all of these. No, it's the old DOS convention. It's not 6 characters, it's 8. The old 8.3, what they called the 8.3 format, where it had to be like 8 characters and then a dot and then 3 for the extension. The E's do break that a little bit because it does have some 4-letter extensions. I think like the shaders are GLSL. But yeah, it's an 8-letter restriction, not 6. So I'm sorry if I said 6, I meant 8. It's an 8-letter restriction. All right, so let's see if I've actually done that correctly. All right, everything installs. So I think that's going to be it for the slippery court. I'm tempted to do one more item just because we're not very deep in this list. Oh, hold on. I also said, okay. So there were clarifications, but nothing material. All right, let's check out Subtle Doctor's thing. And if this is easy, let's do it quickly. If it's not, then block 1 weapon once per hour upon blocking attack. Cast Glare Snare. No, because we're gonna have to learn about 7 eyes to do this. So this is not going to be. This is not going to be something I can easily knock out in like 10 minutes. Let's see. What about the Graze from Thaco? This is a dagger. AC bonus, AC bonus. So it's a magical dagger, but it does base damage. All right. Yeah, let's do Thaco's item really quick because I feel like doing one more item. We'll come back to Subtle Doctors tomorrow because that's going to get us a little bit into the weeds, and it's going to be a very EE specific item. So I don't want to skip it, but it's also not something that I can do very quickly. Whereas this one is something that I can do very quickly. So let's just copy this, and we'll just drop it here. It's called Graze. All right, so what do? We find an item close, copy it, add copy of it. This is going to be G3C Graze, not item. All right, the one difference is, I copied a regular dagger because I wanted the damage to match, but this is actually a magical item, so we need to flag it as magical. All these restrictions should be in place. Normal proficiencies, etc. Okay, except it does. What are its special properties? All right, so Thaco, since you're here, it's +1 armor class bonus. Is this an additional 2? Like, should this be +3 overall for slashing or +2 overall to slashing? Like do these stack for slashing and piercing? Or is it just another +1 for slashing and piercing beyond this? Just a point of clarification. Go ahead and type your answer. I'm going to go ahead and start making it in the meantime. All right, so we're going to add an effect. It's going to be for self. We want to provide a +1 to all weapons. We want it to be while the item is equipped. Not stacking. Okay. All this. It doesn't need to save or anything else. All right. So that gives us the +1 overall. And we're going to copy this. We're going to paste it. And now we're going to give a +1 specifically to slashing. And I think it was in slashing and piercing, right? Yep. Slashing and now to piercing. These are flags. You might be able to do these in one effect, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to make them separate effects just to be on the safe side. Like, it's possible I could do that, but since I'm not sure, I'm going to play it safe and make these separate effects. All right, save, override, okay. And then what else does it need? Speed factor 2. I think that's the normal dagger. Yeah, that is the default unenchanted dagger speed. All right, so speed is 2. And then he wants a weight of 1, which it has a weight of 1. So that is pretty much it. Yeah, I don't think we need to change anything else. All right, save, override, okay. Let's grab this from the override folder again. Oh, you know what? Let's commit the court item first before we do that. Actually, I've already done the code. No, I haven't done the code. Okay. Let's commit the court as a separate commit first. And then we'll add Graze. All right, make our commit. We're added flip court. That might still spell, blah, blah, blah. Commit and push. Boom, boom, boom. That's done. All right, now let's grab Graze out of the override folder. Let's bring it back to the item folder. I'll do that in a second. All right. Up.
Text message from Rudy Yoshida.
My wife just texted me how the stream is going. Sweet of her. G3C Graze, and this is going to be strings 12 and 13. All right, let's grab this. Bring it on over to this. 10, 12 equals, oh, 10, 12 equals Graze. And then I'm actually going to grab just the generic dagger description as a starting point for this. Oh, I need to refresh this. Except that he's provided flavor text, so we'll do that. Statistics, 1d4 piercing, speed factor. All right, but we need to include the equipped abilities. That is one thing that is different. Gives an armor class +1, and then armor class. We'll say, to clarify, we'll say an additional +1. Verse slashing and piercing. Everything else should be fine. I'm trying to think, is any armor does it with parentheses, but the thing is, this is armor. I don't want to do it that way, so we'll do it this way. I hope that doesn't stand out too much. So that should be Graze. 10, 12, 10, 13. Let's change the comment. All right, let's do a quick test. Everything installs fine. Let's make sure it gets its, go back to item, G3C Graze. And yep. Oh yeah, one other thing we need to do. All right, we base this on a normal dagger, but it's actually a magical dagger. So if you were to find this in the game, it would not show up with the blue tint because we've not set a lore to identify on this item. I totally forgot this. So let's see, what is a dagger +1 required to identify? And we can just use that. 20 seems reasonable. Or sorry, 10 seems reasonable. So lore scores range from generally 0 to 100. Shopkeepers have a lore of 100, which is why they can identify everything. So generally your range for how to assign a lore score is between 0 and 100. And again, there's no hard and fast rule for how to assign lore. So this one is kind of very much like try to think of an item that's comparable and then kind of match it. So for this, I'm going to say a lore score of, I mean, it's a magical item, but it's a very low level magical item. So I feel like a dagger +1 and a 10 lore score feels appropriate. So we're going to change this to a lore score of 10. And honestly, I don't think it matters because this is going to be sold in a shop. So it's going to be sold identified. But for completeness, this is how you designate how hard it is for an item to be identified. If you give it to somebody who has a lore score more than 10, they can identify it. If not, you need an identify spell. So let's make that change. I need to grab again from the override because I just changed it. Replace the item. Okay. All right. So let's add this. Okay, nice and simple. Git commit master. This is going to be added. Graze. Commit and push. Boom, and done. All right, so what I forgot to do yesterday, I mentioned yesterday that I want to do nightly build. So at the end of the day, anybody can come and download and see what the mod is in progress. But I didn't go through that yesterday. So we're going to do that today really quick. So the first thing we're going to make 2 updates. One is in the TP2 itself. We're going to change, this is going to be the nightly of October 21st. We totally forgot yesterday. And then also in here, open a notepad, I don't know why. This is also going to be the 1021. So like I said, this is G3's custom mod packaging software. So this is not something that probably most people are going to do, but I want to at least take you through the release process on GitHub so you see what it's like. So we're going to make a quick commit. This is going to be versioning for nightly build. Commit and push. And now we're going to make the actual packages. And the nice thing is, for the G3 packages, it's a double click. Boom, boom, boom. It's made my 3 packages. There we go. Those are our 3 install packages made for me. So now we're going to come back to GitHub and we're just going to do a quick release. All right, the G3 community item pack. So we're going to create a new release. This is going to be nightly 10/21/24. Create the new tag. This is going to be the nightly release 10/21/24. And normally this is where you'd put in a changelog, but I'm just going to put that this is a nightly work in progress build. We're going to, let me grab my 3 packages, put them here. It's going to upload them. Boom, boom, boom. Because this is not a full stable release, we're going to mark it as a pre-release. Anybody who's in software knows that nightly is like, right? You've got like your stable releases, like a version 1, version 2, version 3. You've got your beta, you've got your release candidates, which are almost a stable release. Below that, you've got a beta, and then you've got an alpha. And then even below that, you've got nightly. Nightly is basically like, hey, we did stuff today. Let's throw it together and put it out there so that our QA teams and our testers can look at it. Like nightly is like the least stable of releases. So that's why I'm labeling these as nightly. Because frankly, you've noticed we've made all these items, but we've not really tested these in game. We know they install and that's about it. So this is like the lowest standard of QA that we've had. So there we go. It's a double click for Windows users. Our mod package also supports Linux and Mac OS packagers. So yes, you can use this if you're a Mac or a Linux user. We do have that. Check the G3 repository. It's like the mod package tool, and then it's got documentation. This is something that Mike 1072 made. It's fantastic. I love it. There is still one bug that Bub has been bothering me to fix that I've not fixed yet. That basically on Windows, sometimes the self extractor does not properly show the install message, but we haven't fixed that. So then we publish release. Boom, we've got a release. Now, one other thing, and then just to show you, right? So this is, you notice this has the nice normal G3 branding and text. The virus, my virus installer, my virus just said, hey, are you sure about this? So you notice we got the nice little G3. We got the item name. We've got the build. You can choose accept. Oh, and it popped up over here. And notice how it's got the games listed. This was also something that we set in that batch file, what are the targets for the games. All right, so we're just going to cancel out of this. All right, so let me come back here really quick. So, and then the other thing is, remember at the very beginning for GitHub, we set up that auto packager script from Alien. Let's refresh this. By magic, we now have the IE mod package that Project Infinity prefers, and that was made by that YAML script that we included from Alien. So it was done automatically. We didn't have to upload it. It did it on its own. So nice and easy. And you also see it's so much smaller. And same with the Linux version. And the reason why these are so much smaller is because the Windows and the Mac versions include a copy of Waidu itself, and these do not, which is why these are so much smaller. These packages are literally just text files. That's something else the packager does, is it pulls out, the Linux packager doesn't need an executable, so that is excluded. The Mac packager grabs a Mac copy of Waidu automatically. So that's why I love that packager so much. Like, it's double click and I'm done, and it's wonderful. So I think with the nightly build done, we're going to call the stream. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it. We'll do this again tomorrow at 9 o'clock again. And we'll start off with Subtle Doctor's item. Like I said, we're gonna get into the weeds a little bit with that one, because that's gonna require like using 7 eyes, which is that's not basic stuff. So hopefully we won't get too far into the weeds in it, and hopefully we don't spend an entire stream making one item. If it does look like we're going that way, we'll skip it. I'll do some stuff off stream and come back to it. So, but thank you guys for joining. We're going to call it here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the outro. As always, if you have any questions, I'll be posting the recap stream. If you have any questions or something wasn't clear, by all means, ask. And then just like today, we'll start tomorrow's stream with a little Q&A, like, oh, after the stream, I got to ask this, I got to ask that. And then we can go through and explain why we did this or answer any questions you have. So thanks for joining. We will see you guys again tomorrow. Good night, everybody. Or good night, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are.